Let's see. This is a really long question here. It's from Experiencers Wooden Passenger 8683. Question for both of you. Concerning the nature of UAP, a significant sighting I had around 1975 showed a UAP morphing. When I remembered this sighting after many years, I looked more deeply into this UAP ability to shape change, an ability that to me appears to get less attention than it deserves. Some researchers, like Joseph Burke, MD, postulate that at least some UAP sightings are sophisticated projections of some kind rather than physical objects, which is the virtual experience hypothesis. I would be interested in some comments, opinions, speculations concerning Ryan Graves and Dr. Haines' take on UAP's, let's call it, composition.
Wow. Oh, boy. Yeah, virtual changes. This is taking what the writer is really asking, how physical is physical? How firm are the molecules? Is there a dimension of mental coordination or cooperation or communication here that has only energy involved and nothing else? Nothing else. And that's a $64 question. We're still looking at that. And it's a very fruitful field for philosophizing, writing fictional books and so forth for fun. But it's a very serious question, too, because it gets at the issue of the spirit of man. We can use the word spirit, but nobody really can define it very well. You can't measure it, but it's there. It can control behavior. So I think maybe we need to broaden our acceptance levels as scientists and technologists and so forth, to be a little more open-minded in this other dimension or domain that this gentleman is talking about, this virtual dimension. That's about all I could say at this point.
Yeah, I mean, that, being able to intercept our ability to observe the world and, influence that signal is, the way I interpret the way that what they were suggesting, essentially. And for me, maybe I think like that because that's how a lot of electronic warfare systems work, either on our jets or elsewhere, right? We receive a signal of someone trying to learn about us. We interfere with the signal and then we send it back so it looks the way we want it to look. And it wouldn't be a far cry if someone had the ability to, implant a chip in your brain, if you will, to observe all your neural activity to perhaps make those changes. And, there might be more sophisticated ways to do that other than implanting a chip, possibly at range, right? So, I mean, that's the logical path I would take to how you would potentially manipulate someone's mind to influence what they're seeing or observing. But, I think there's probably simpler explanations for the amorphous shape. And, it's reports that we've received as well. And I think perhaps one of the simplest conclusions, ways to interpret it is that, you could be looking at something theoretically that you have no contextual framework for whatsoever. So, when you look at something and it looks like a weird plane, it looks like a weird plane to you because it kind of looks like a plane. But if you show a plane to a caveman, he doesn't know why that rock looks like that, right? And he just has no framework for fitting it in. So if you're looking at something and it's moving in ways that, appear very strange to you, if you had the right context about how that system worked and what it was doing, then it might make perfect sense about how it was moving, even if it was moving with technology that might not exist here, right? More of a fluid metal reshaping than, a door opening. So I would guess that would probably be the most simplest explanation. Another potential explanation could be that the visual field is being changed due to a manipulation of space-time itself, that theory of how these are propulsed. If that is accurate, it would also affect what these things actually look like, because the optics are bending around the object, and that would cause it to look like it's moving and changing, even though perhaps it might just be the propulsion system is changing, and therefore it's changing what it looks like. So, I think there's a lot of different ways that we could think about what that means. I think the conscious influence section, or the, electronic warfare against the mind, I think is an interesting one, but I think there's more tangible things that we could work toward figuring out first.
Mm-hmm.
Because that goes right to the core of our understanding of reality, right? I mean, that's directly moving us into an area that I think is even beyond consciousness, right? As far as our lack of understanding.
Let me just share something briefly that
Please.
Dr. J. Allen Hynek shared with me a long time ago, and it's been quoted many places. He said that there's going to be a physics of the 22nd century, and he's right. And what he's really saying is that we don't know everything now, and that we have a long way to go, and the physics is going to change in the process, and that we need to be staying open to this change and willing to accept new approaches. And that's what we're both talking about right now. The introduction of whole new fields of science, for instance, which don't even appear on any graduate school curricula right now, brand new. And it may be much less physical than we like to think of now. I just leave that door open.
Yeah.
In my career, I've had people who want to force me into the end of a long continuum. And let's say it's this end here. And that end of the UFO continuum is the nuts and bolts end, where we have little gray men and metallic objects that fly around and do strange things. At the other end of that continuum is the complete spiritual end, where it's without mass. It may have energy, but it has no mass. We'll try to figure that out. And people try to force me into one complete end or one complete the other end. And I ask them, please give me the privilege of staying somewhere in the middle and let the data speak for itself. That's what science does. It doesn't force you into a position that the data is denied by the data. And so I think this is kind of related to what we're talking about here, that culture comes along and sees things in the night sky and wants to turn them into the nuts and bolts end of things over here, when in fact it could be something very different and doing a camouflage, you might call it, to make you think you're over here when in fact you should be over here. Does that make any sense?
Oh yeah, it makes sense to me.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're moving more and more towards understanding the relationship of consciousness itself to the phenomenon, and the relationship of the phenomenon to all kinds of other elements of human consciousness, which is, it's just really very expansive. And eventually, I guess, the scientific model is going to have to incorporate more and more of that over time. I mean, I'm not a scientist, but I see us moving more in that direction.